The Fed 15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fed 15 podcast, presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the latest news and info the Feds need to know in 15 minutes or less-ish. So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, we've got you covered. So grab your coffee, your energy drink, whatever gets you going in the morning, kick back, and we'll tell you what you need to know but may have missed. We are your hosts. I am Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the inimitable Caitlin Murray.
Yes. We are here week after week, man, hanging in there despite volatility and all other nonsense and craziness.
Indeed, folks. And if you can bear to tear yourself away from looking at what markets are doing right now, and I urge you to do so, fire up your Google machine and look up Warren Buffett poem. He quotes a poem that was actually on my wall for the long, I can't remember a time that it wasn't growing up. And it's Rudyard Kipling's If. And it basically talks about the fact that stuff is going to happen throughout your entire life. And how you stay centered, stay true, and navigate it is what makes the difference. And, again, I'm close to 40 years. I talk about this will be my fourth riff. I've also got a few crashes in there, and I'm not saying this one's a crash. I've seen crashes, corrections, pullbacks. I saw the Corona crash, all of it. Okay. The difference is who kept their head, who stayed true to their plan. And if your plan was just stuff it all in the C fund and forget it, that's not a plan. That's a default setting. So if you want to talk to people who have the ability to kind of talk through, history and what you might expect and things like that, happy to help you there. But if you're not looking for that, read Warren's article, stay calm.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself, for sure. Only thing I'd add is if your plan was to stuff it all in G fund, also not a plan. Both sides of the same kind of spectrum.
Yeah, the problem is you're feeling really super smart right now.
Yeah. It's that good confirmation bias.
Yep, because hey, I'm not losing, and you're not focusing on what you didn't get over the last 10 years. So all in one thing is not a plan. It's a default setting that occasionally feels good. So we have some cool stuff for you today. Caitlin will be talking about RMD, specifically first ones, because yes, we realize there's a lot going on for Feds, and we are here with you for that all the way through. You have only to look at our content, the fact that we've put up special webinars to deal with the current circumstances, that. But life still goes on, and there are still rules and regs that we have to follow, and required minimum distributions are one of them. And then I'll be back a little bit later to talk about discontinued service retirement, because I think it's a really important thing to understand. So, Caitlin, kick us off with what folks need to know on that RMD front.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dan, as you said, there's a bunch of craziness going on in the markets and certainly in the federal space, but folks are still turning 73, at least for now. So we do need to know what comes with that very important birthday. So RMDs, I think this is a term that a lot of folks know that fewer folks understand, especially if you're not in a situation of having to take them each year yet. So RMD stands for Required Minimum Distribution. It is a mandatory minimum withdrawal that you have to take from tax-deferred retirement accounts like IRAs, TSPs, and other employer-sponsored plans. Now, essentially, the reason that the RMD exists is because very wealthy people could max out tax-deferred retirement plans, take a tax deduction in the current year for putting that money in, so it came off their income, and then they don't need to use that money because they are very wealthy and have assets other places that they can spend. And then their children inherited those funds before RMDs were a thing. And their children didn't need to spend the tax deferred money, because why would I take money out of an account that I have to pay income tax on distributions from if I could pull from a massive brokerage account that I pay no income tax on? And so this cycle continued and continued and continued. And the problem is that money that was contributed to the tax deferred account continues to grow and was never taxed and is never taxed if there is not a RMD in place to ensure that some minimum amount comes out of the account each year. So I think understanding why RMD, just conceptually, helps you kind of solidify what an RMD is. So remember that middle word, the M, minimum. If you are somebody who is retired, who is pulling $5,000 a month out of your IRA to supplement your pension and your Social Security, then you may not have to take any amount out to satisfy your RMD because it's a minimum amount. So it's based on your prior year balance and the IRS's uniform lifetime table. There's a special calculation. A lot of people get RMDs confused with the 4% rule, where you can pull 4% out of a portfolio each year and not have principal decline. It is not that. It is not a percentage. It is based on your uniform lifetime table through the IRS and the balance in your account December 31st of the prior year. But if you are already pulling money out of your IRA or your TSP, then you may have already satisfied the RMD and not have to take an extra one. But if, let's say, you're only pulling $2,000 a month out to supplement income, so you've pulled $24,000 out, and your RMD, as calculated by your CPA, or your financial advisor, is $26,000, then you don't need to pull out $26,000. You would need to pull out the difference. So you've pulled out $24,000 to supplement income. You would need to take an additional $2,000 to satisfy that RMD. Okay. So hopefully that's enough of a flyover on what an RMD is and how it functions. If you need more information, hit up STW Serve. You can hit that search bar with RMD and find more information than you ever wanted to know about it. But specifically in this week's article, we are focused in on the first RMD. And man, Dan, you never forget your first RMD. You'd better not, because there's a penalty from the IRS if you do. So currently, it used to be back in the day, the RMD age was 70 and a half. They increased it to 72. They've now increased it to 73 with a future increase built in to 75 for those born 1960 or later. So that first year, let's say you're turning 73 this year and you need to take an RMD. For the first year and the first year only, you can delay taking your RMD to April 1st of the year following the year you turn 73. So let's go through this. So let's say this year I'm turning 73. I have a wonderful skincare routine. I am turning 73. I have until April of 2026 to take my RMD for this year. Okay. I have until the tax filing deadline for the year in which I turned 73, which in this example is 2025. Now, I can absolutely do that, and it is perfectly legal and okay and fine. The following year, I will also have to take an RMD, because every year after you turn 73, you got to take one each year like clockwork. So the following year, I have until December 31st to take my RMD, and every year thereafter. So it's only that first year where you get that little extra 4 months that you can delay taking that RMD. Now, you might think, well, Caitlin, if they're going to delay me taking it, I don't need this money. I'm just going to wait until April and take it. Here's the problem with that strategy. If you do that, let's say your RMD is $25,000. You have to take, so your year 73 RMD, you wait until April to take it, it's $25,000. You have to take your age 74 RMD by December 31st of that same year. And that's let's say another $25,000 or $26,000. So you now have double the RMD income in that one tax year, which could kick you up into a higher tax bracket, which would not be great because that means you're paying more out in taxes. You're losing more money to taxes. So although you can delay taking the RMD for the first year into the following tax year to April, we typically suggest that folks take that same year, that they just treat it like any other RMD year and they take it by December 31st. Now, there's always caveats in financial planning. A caveat could be, I'm expecting a big drop of in income next year. So I don't want to add my RMD income onto this year's income because I'm expecting to take a big drop in income next year. That could create space for you to take 2 RMDs in 1 year. Okay. But the big thing here is knowledge, and knowing, I have this option, but it may not be the best option if it's going to kick me into a higher tax bracket. Couple other things to be aware of. If you don't take your RMD, 25% penalty on the amount that should have been withdrawn. So what this looks like is if my RMD is $10,000 and I didn't take it, I missed it. I didn't have an advisor at Serving Those Who Serve who told me to make sure I take it. By the way, from every account. So if you've got an IRA and you've got TSP, you got an RMD on that IRA and you got an RMD on that TSP. And if you miss either one of them, 25% penalty on the amount that should have been withdrawn. So if I'm supposed to take 10 grand and I don't take it, I pay $2,500 in penalty. If you are listening to this podcast, if you are listening to this podcast and you are 73 and you inherited an IRA for somebody and you are thinking, oh crap, I have filed my taxes and it is past the deadline and Caitlin is now saying that I have this thing called an RMD that I didn't know about. If you find it yourself and you correct it yourself and then you file an amended tax return, the IRS looks on you much more favorably when it comes to that penalty. So
absolutely,
don't pretend it didn't happen. Fix it, own up to it, and then they'll be more forgiving. Just like me with my kid, more forgiving if he fesses up to it. So he'll do wild stuff, but he'll be honest about it because he knows that I'm more lenient. The other thing to think about with RMDs, you need to have tax withholding. RMDs are taxed as ordinary income. They're coming out of those pre-tax accounts. So you need to make sure that you're setting up federal tax withholding and state tax withholding if that applies to you, so that you can avoid creating all this taxable income that doesn't have any tax withholding on it. Quarterly estimated tax payments are also a way that you can do that if you want to take it into your own hands and make those payments online or by check. So again, if you want to know more about RMDs, go to stwserve.com and hit RMD into the search results, into the search bar, and you will get a ton of results that will educate you on that. If you are looking for a way to optimize your RMDs, to minimize your tax burden, and to align your RMDs with your retirement goals, you could consider working with a financial professional. We always recommend CFP, and for our feds, Chartered Federal Employee Benefits Consultant. We'd be happy to talk to you at Serving Those Who Serve if you're looking to build a relationship with somebody. The timing of RMDs is important. The tax withholding is important, and coordinating across accounts is important. I could get into a whole diatribe on RMDs from TSP and how in rocky markets like what we're in right now, because the TSP lacks the ability to sell from one fund over another and just sells pro rata from every fund you're invested in. Yep. If you're pulling money out, you're probably selling funds at a loss in your TSP if you've got those equity funds. So I'm not going to get into all that. If you're curious about that, reach out to us at stwserve.com and you can schedule a meeting with somebody who can talk to you a whole lot more about how that works.
Absolutely. Okay. So discontinued service retirement, DSR, is something that has popped to the fore, but probably hasn't really been explained to a lot of people. And the DSR stands for discontinued service retirement. And what is it? It is a way to access federal retirement benefits early, but without the penalty reductions that typically go with them. The requirements are you have to be involuntarily separated due to, for example, a RIF. I don't think I have to explain to any feds what that is right now. Reorganization, so significant changes in an agency structure, eliminating or modifying positions, downsizing. I don't think I need to explain that to anybody. And position abolishment, I think we're seeing that right now as well. So all of those things would set a trigger for a discontinued service retirement. And again, it allows you to access your retirement benefits much earlier, but without the 5% per year penalty. OPM oversees the process, ensuring that employees meet the eligibility and going through the application with them. Eligibility for DSR. CSRS, folks, because you're still out there, we never forget you. You have to be at least 50 years old with 20 years of service or 25 years of service, regardless of age. And for FERS, that's identical. So I'll repeat it again, at least 50 with 20 years of service, or if you have 25 years of service, age does not matter. You can access that annuity immediately. Why might that be a good thing? Well, if you're worried about hanging on to your health insurance, and you're going to have to get another job, this is one way you can kind of check that box off. And again, has to be due to RIF, downsizing, reorganization, and not misconduct. No, I don't think that most of our feds are going to have to worry about that. So what are the factors? Creditable service. So that's all periods of service under CSRS and FERS. And again, don't have to explain involuntary separation. We understand that pretty well. So it's an immediate annuity. So it's payable pretty soon after you retire. I'm not going to put a date on that because I think we're going to see some slowing of processes for a bit here, but there will be an immediate annuity starting and it goes for life. Calculation is going to be on the high 3 years of service, which you're already used to. But also don't forget, this can have survivor benefits too for your spouse. What does that mean? It means if something happens to you, if you take the max survivor, if you're FERS, that's 50%. If you're CSR, it's 55%. Plus, they can stay in health insurance as well. So some other things you probably want to think about if you're heading into retirement. Think about what FEHB coverage makes sense for you. Is there a pathway? Do you still have kids at home? Do you want to make sure that you have family coverage, or perhaps can you now move to self plus one? Reemployment rules, because here's the thing, folks. This will be my fourth RIF. So there were 3 previous, and yet the average headcount of civilian federal service has hovered between 2 million and 2.2. So that's telling me that people are being hired to take those places, but that also means they can be rehired. So we have an article on the site about the reemployment priority list, rehire priority list. I encourage you to read up on that. If you're being RIF'd, make sure you get on that list. So if you're a CSRS annuitant and you come back to federal service, your benefits will be suspended while you're reemployed and reinstated after separation. So you just have your salary. Under FERS, it allows for you to receive the annuity payments. There's a salary offset with the possibility of a supplemental annuity after 1 year of full-time service. So you put in a year, you can actually have a supplemental annuity that's paid to you in addition to your other ones. And after 5 years of full-time service, a rehired FERS can choose between that supplemental annuity or have the whole kit and caboodle recalculated for you. So people do get hired back, and there are options for you. So what steps can you take right now? Understand the rules. Understand those 2 retirement systems. You can read up on the OPM site. You can also come to our webinars. You can come to our site. We take great pride in giving you the answers that are easy to find. And here's the best part. You can come at 3:00 in the morning, take our stuff for free. We won't even know it. Okay. The important thing is that you get the information that you need. Review your service records. Okay. Make sure that you understand your numbers and they are accurate to your understanding. You can calculate your benefit. There are tools on the OPM site where you can do that. So you can take a look at that. Not a bad time to consider a relationship with a financial planner. Certainly not a requirement, but it can be a big help. Attend retirement seminars, webinars, everything. You really can't have too much information. Okay. And consider post-retirement work. Because I think for a lot of folks who are going out early, because remember, with 25 years, you can go pretty early. You're going to want that second career. So the big thing here, and it's a quote that came across my radar a couple of days ago, attributed to Maya Angelou, which is all storms eventually run out of rain. So what's happening right now, I'm not trying to sell you on the fact that it's great. It's not. I hate it. I hate the way you're being treated. But this too shall pass. And you're going to have a whole rest of a life that you need to care for. And we want to make sure that you have the information to do that. And we are here to help any way we can. So that's what I got.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, definitely with the decisions that feds are having to make each situation, there's so many different factors swirling. Each situation is so unique and different. There's, we're putting a ton of information out, but I really think with this particular juncture, because there's so much to absorb, you're going to want to talk to somebody who knows this stuff in and out and who can educate you on one of the biggest pieces. And we talk about this in the webinar all the time. One of the biggest pieces is figuring out what applies to you, what's relevant for you, and what's not. For example, if you're able to retire on an immediate retirement, VERA does not apply to you. VSIP could apply to you because it's an incentive payment. So weeding out the alphabet soup, the DSR, the DRP, the VERA, the VSIP, like all of that alphabet soup, being able to weed out what doesn't apply so that you can really focus on what does. Because I've seen a lot of folks who are trying to kind of like absorb all of it at once and learn about VERA and VSIP and DRP and postponed retirement and deferred retirement. And when they're eligible for an immediate retirement and none of that, all of those options pale in comparison. So definitely, like Dan said, partner with somebody. Now is the time to get that support. Arguably, feds have never needed it more. So
absolutely. And be careful about AI answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because God bless it. Okay. AI doesn't have experience, so it will do ergo.
Yeah.
So it'll pull together unrelated things and say, oh, well, this makes perfect sense. Therefore, it must work this way. We're running across that.
Yep.
Where people say, wait a minute, I looked it up through here and here's the answer. And sure enough, it's an AI summary. And 10 years from now, that's probably going to be 100% accurate.
Maybe. Just like AI can't do your job as a Fed, it can't do ours as a financial planner. So keep that in mind. But for today, folks, this is where we leave you. We'll be back next week to bring you all the latest updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
And I'm going to encourage you, please, please, please subscribe to this podcast. We're still showing like almost 70% of our regular viewers. And thank you for being regular viewers. Please subscribe so you know when it drops. Okay. On either YouTube or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And now more than ever, if you find what we're doing helpful, share it with your friends and even a couple enemies. You may make a new friend that way.
Get you those good karma points. You need them. We all do. The biggest thing also with subscribing, if you're thinking, oh, I know when new episodes drop, I've been listening to this podcast. The biggest thing with subscribing is it does help boost us in the YouTube algorithm. So it helps us reach new feds who need this information.
Excellent point. Yep.
So if you don't need to subscribe for yourself, do it for your fellow feds. It will help boost the signal and help us reach folks that don't know about Fed 15. So for more information covered in the topics on, was that even English? For more information on the topics covered in today's show, rather.
It was English-ish.
Yeah, it was English adjacent. So for more information on the topics that we discussed today and more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. While you are there, you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all the latest news for feds delivered straight to your inbox every single week.
And don't forget our live webinars pretty much every single week. A couple of really good ones upcoming on February 22nd. It's our ever popular TSP webinar from 11 till 2 featuring the financial lady, Caitlin Murray.
I've heard about that lady.
Yep, absolutely. And then on April 23rd, we've got a marathon day and it'll open at 11 o'clock, 11 till 2 with CSRS. Yes, folks, we do not forget you. Okay, we never forget our CSRS folks. I'm old enough that once upon a time, that's the only type of people I met. So I will never forget you. I'll be hosting that and then taking a quick sip of an energy drink, organic. It's going to take care of my health. And from 2:30 to 5:30, we'll be doing our VERA, VSIP, DSR. And these have become invaluable to people. And from what I can tell, we're the only ones doing them like this with live Q&A. So be sure to register and share it with your friends. And as Caitlin has touched on, if this is just all swirling and you're looking for a personal touch, you can book directly with us at asksws@swserve.com. Just let us know. Somebody will reach out and we'll get you one-on-one, and we'll take the time to help you understand what you have. Do I have a full service financial planning group? Absolutely. Do we ever have to talk about that? Absolutely not. We're going to help you. Now, if you want to talk to us afterwards, I'm thrilled, but not a requirement.
For sure. Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Fed 15. I'm Caitlin Murray.
And I'm Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week. Take care.
Count on it. Not going anywhere. We'll be here.